You're listening to
The Bart Factor
with your host, Bart Robley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Bart Factor. I am your host, Bart Robley. Thank you guys so much for listening. I've got a really cool podcast for you guys today. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun, especially all my drum geek friends out there. I want you guys to, sit back and enjoy this. This is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started, though, I want to give a couple of quick plugs and thank yous to my sponsors. I want to thank Aquarian Drumheads. I've been with Aquarian for over 20 years. They're my longest running endorser, and it's very important to me to work with great companies and also just great people. And the people at Aquarian are second to none. They're fantastic. So thank you to them. And then to my website, drummerswag.com. Shameless self-plug right there. We have a lot of fun drum t-shirts and educational stuff on there. So check out Drummer Swag when you get a chance. I started doing this podcast a few months ago for a few specific reasons. Number one was just that, shameless self-promotion. I think in this business, you have to promote yourself and stand at the top of the mountain and wave your own flag a lot of times. I also am very involved in music education, and I have a lot of drum students, and so I like to talk a lot about music education and stuff. Sometimes it's not even just drumming education, it's music education, and talk to people that are new to the business and help them avoid some of the pitfalls that maybe, some of us have stepped into. And then also to talk to and interview my drummer friends. I have lifelong friends that I've made in the business over the years, and so I want to interview them and talk to them. And that's what I'm going to do today. Sitting across from me here in the Bart Cave is drummer, bass player, songwriter, question mark there, songwriter?
Yeah, I've got songwriting credits.
Okay, songwriter. And
We'll talk about that specifically, how I define that.
Perfect. And golfer extraordinaire.
I do golf. I wouldn't use the extraordinaire, but I know how to have fun.
From Dwight Yoakam's band, Mitch Marine. Mitch, how are you, buddy?
Fine, Bart. How you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for coming over here and
Absolutely.
doing my podcast. And it's a little bit belated because it's a couple days away, but Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Hope 2018 is rocking for you.
Oh, likewise for you, my
Thank
friend.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So one of the ways that I always like to start this whenever I'm interviewing one of my friends or another drummer is like how we met. And it's kind of cool. I got a text a few months ago and from this guy, and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for a drum teacher for my girlfriend and my girlfriend's son." And you came recommended, I think it was by Lone Star.
Yes.
Yeah, and so thank you to the people at Lone Star Percussion.
The one here in Orange County, I've been good friends with everybody over in Dallas for many years. So Orange County finally has a real drum shop, which is great.
Once again, thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I say that because I live in Studio City, and Pro Drum Shop up there on Vine has always been my go-to place. But I spend a lot of time down here in Orange County now, and there used to be a drum shop called Orange County Drums that I played a golf tournament for a couple times with those guys.
Oh, cool.
Never really shopped there because I have Pro Drum up in Studio City or up in Hollywood. But I needed some place down here when I needed an emergency quick couple drum heads or whatever, just stuff. And I was like, there's no place. I can't believe our only choice is to have to drive all the way up to Hollywood to go to Pro Drum Shop. And finally, Lone Star Percussion brought their shop in. It's in Fullerton. It's on
Orange Thorn.
Yeah. And love those guys. Orange County is very fortunate to have a drum shop like that where you can just see the newest and the latest and the greatest of drum gear. It's a bad boy. I like it. I'm very happy.
It is really cool, and I was really happy about it too because like you said, everything just kind of went away. There was nothing, and so you were kind of if you're going to buy something, you had to buy it on the internet or go to the Evil Empire.
Well, the Evil Empire still didn't really have what you still didn't have it. I mean, it's worse now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And they know it, and that's just the deal. So they're restructuring as they have to survive and whatever. That's a whole huge thing, whatever it is. But pro drummers. I mean, there are enough of us in Orange County.
Oh, yeah.
And I can call myself us because I'm down here a lot now, that need it. And it's been missing, and thank God Lone Star Percussion's out.
I was very happy to find out that they were moving here, and the fact that they're like 5 minutes away from my house is outstanding.
That's good for you.
I love that, man. So anyway, yeah. So I got a text from Mitch, and he goes, yeah, I'm looking for a drum teacher, and so I call him, and he told me he was a drummer for Dwight Yoakam, and I was like, wow, that's fantastic. So when are you going to start teaching them? He goes, no, I need somebody, and so I was referred to him. So I'm very flattered, and I thank you so much, and. So that's how Mitch and I met. So there we go.
And I will say that they are still taking lessons, and they're very happy, and I hear them getting better all the time. So
well, that's good.
Good job.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to start from the beginning, and like I told you before we even started, I don't like do a lot of edits or cuts or anything like that. So what we're going to talk about today is going to go up. I want to start from the very, 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 very beginning. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? And how did you get started in the music business? How did you get started in drumming?
Well, I'm from a small town called Morton, Illinois. It's about 10 to 12,000 people, still to this day. I'm born in 61, graduated high school in 79, and moved to Texas in 1980 to go to North Texas.
Okay.
And then I moved to Los Angeles in 2002. So those have been my three places of living. In Illinois, at the time in the mid-'70s, I was fortunate that we had gigs for people, which specifically we played a lot of football games.
Oh, cool.
Friday nights there were dances at all the high schools. So,
yeah.
So basically, I started in the early 70s, kind of like everybody else, with some piano lessons, and then junior high band came around.
Cool.
And at that point in time, my parents allowed me to either get that Ludwig snare drum, which I'm sure was an Acrolite at the time, or an full Apollo drum set, which was a real cheap Japanese drum set. But so of course I picked the drum set because that's what I want to play.
Exactly.
That's what I want to do. But I did junior high band. I started taking lessons, private lessons, played in the high school band for a few years, until the band director and I just had it out, and I was probably a jerk, but he was a jerk, so we were both jerks, and it wasn't a good fit. And it was a little bit different than now. I noticed because of how popular core is now.
Yeah. Did you do marching and stuff like that?
I did it, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't core. It wasn't.
Yeah.
The instructor, I think, eventually got fired anyway, and he wasn't very good, but I wasn't a very good student either at the time. So, I'll call that a 50-50 situation there. But with that being said, the reason I mentioned about gigs is that at my age, junior high and high school and stuff like that, we could have a high school band that played gigs, like
right.
real paying gigs, even bars. And at the time, drinking age was 18 there. So it wasn't impossible to play bars, and there were a lot of gigs. And it's just something I think about, how any high school kid like Colin, who you teach, they have to figure out how to have gigs, because
right.
high schools don't have dances
right.
after the football games. There aren't clubs anymore where kids go hear bands. It's just it's a real struggle now. It's not as easy to move from buying a drum set to finding your friends that play guitar, bass, sing, keys,
right.
to finding gigs,
Yeah.
to getting better, to learning. And that's how you learn songs, because you got gig. Oh, we
Right.
got a gig coming up. Okay, how much? Well, we need to play an hour. Okay, and you got to play covers, because first of all, you don't write songs and shouldn't be writing songs, and the people want to hear covers.
Right, exactly.
So that's how we learned. And you have years and years and years of doing that. And it's just unfortunate nowadays. It's just not as easy
Yeah.
for kids to move all those steps into where you're playing gigs and learning songs and stuff.
I especially here in Southern California, it used to be, Southern California is a melting pot of musicians and everybody coming out here to play. But it seems like even when I moved out here 30 years ago, there was more places to play for younger people where there isn't nowadays. Around here in Orange County, I think there's a place called Chain Reaction, and they do, kind of high school age stuff. But back in the day, you used to have that. You're right. There's not so much anymore.
Yeah, School of Rock has kind of helped a little bit, try to fill in that void. But I just remember when I was a kid, it was easy to I want to play drums and I want to be in a band, and you call up 4 friends and you're like, yeah, I do too. And they're like, okay, let's do it.
And you got in the garage.
You got in the garage, but you had goals of gigs, and
Right.
they were there. It's not impossible. It was like you didn't have to make them up.
Right. Yeah. There's always like Battle of the Bands and stuff like that too back then.
Oh yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the Illinois portion of it. And then I went to North Texas for pretty much 3 semesters, 4 officially.
Were you in the 1 o'clock jazz band?
No, I didn't. I wasn't in the 1 o'clock. I got up to the 4 o'clock.
Very cool.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
honestly, in 3 semesters, first semester, nothing, because I really couldn't read. And then the second semester, I got on the 9 o'clock, and the third semester, I got on the 4 o'clock. So I worked my butt off on reading, which is what you had to be able to do. I mean, I could read, but because I didn't do much band stuff in high school, my reading was pretty. I could fake my way through a lot of stuff. Someone would put a chart in there, and I'm like, okay, let's go. And if it was a drum set thing, I could fake my way through it. But you cannot fake your way through North Texas.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude.
They are brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
it is brutal.
Yeah. I mean, look at the people that have come out of there.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is vicious, and it's the best vicious that if you're gonna be a professional musician, it's the best vicious you could possibly get. You get real world feedback of exactly where you stand in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, okay, cool. And you either you eventually like it because that makes you get better, or you like it because it made you go, maybe not. And you choose another path.
You go another way. Yeah. And I think sometimes that, I think there's, everybody handles things differently from an educational standpoint, drum teacher wise. And I think some drum teachers, will sugarcoat stuff and everything. You can tiptoe around things, but some people don't. Some drum teachers don't. I remember when I was studying with Ralph Humphrey, and he was a lot of times you're just like, man, he would beat you up, but you came out on the other side. Like you said, you either would be like, well, I don't know if I really want to do this, or you would just sit down with a pair of sticks and, give it everything it had.
Yeah. The kind of money that you're spending to go to a university, they better be, I mean, that's my belief, is they better be telling you straight up, hey, you suck, or
Right.
you don't have to stand a chance, or you suck, but you can get better. Let's see what you're willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what, so, but, yeah.
I remember one of my
Cool.
lessons with Ralph Humphrey. We were working on flam accents, and he straight up, no chaser, goes, well, the reason your flams suck is because I was like, whoa, man, that But hey, you went home and you practiced flams,
Right.
That's the way it works. So early on, growing up, Illinois, Texas, all that sort of stuff. Who were your early influences? Who got you? Who was the guy that you saw and you went, I got to do that?
Tommy Aldridge, probably.
Oh, far out. Very cool.
And I say that only, and then that's the one thing I really remember. I was probably already playing drums. I'm sure I was by then. So, in all fairness, there's Ringo, but I wasn't of the age where I saw him on Ed Sullivan and said, "That's what I want to do."
Right.
I have an older brother. He's 6 years older, so I had records from him that I listened to and that I got involved in. But I think the first time I saw a drummer and I just lost my mind was Tommy Aldridge with Black Oak, Arkansas on Don Kirshner's rock concert. God.
Dude, I probably saw the same one. I remember
it. Oh my God, I couldn't believe this guy. I was just like, holy mackerel. He would throw his sticks out and do a drum solo with his hands, and I was just like, this is the best drummer in the world.
Yeah.
And I still believe he's just one of my favorites. Guy's so good.
Do you play double bass?
I have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I do, but I have.
Yeah.
I mean, not like the pedals.
Right.
I've never set up a full double bass drum set.
Oh, okay.
I've sat behind one at NAMM show for fun, but other
Yeah.
than that,
Yeah. It's a lot to lug around.
Oh, I'm never doing that.
Back in the 80s, I did that. I got to open for Tommy Aldridge once, and that's another story for another time. I'll tell you about it. It was really cool. Have you ever met him?
I have not met him. I know a lot of people that know him and stuff, and I told Jill to go. I said, hey, Jill, there's a Yamaha was doing a 50th anniversary, and I know some people at Yamaha, and I was like, hey, is it open for the public? Just blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, have her show up. I couldn't be there.
Right. And this was at NAMM?
No. This was just recently. They did it at the Music Institute.
Oh, okay.
So it was a big 50th anniversary. It was a big deal. It was Tommy Aldridge, Dave Weckl, and some other guy. I don't know who. She said he was great. I mean, he's gonna be great. You know that. Yeah. But yeah, she said Tommy was great.
Oh yeah.
But she loved Dave Weckl. I mean, she loved the whole thing. But yeah, Tommy just, oh my God.
Yeah, the guy's an animal, man. He really is. So now, anyway, so let's go back to, so when you were in Texas, you played with a band called Brave Combo.
Right.
And I went on and like looked at your discography and was like looking at stuff. You did a lot of records with that band. Talk to me about that band. Tell me about that band and how it came to be and what you did.
So in Illinois, I went, and I'll just give you a backstory. So, everything from just rock to country rock, a lot of southern rock and some country and stuff like that in Illinois. And then I started listening to jazz and played a little bit of jazz before I moved to North Texas, where I played a lot of jazz, only jazz, listened to only jazz. And at the time, even when I went to North Texas, there was no plan to get a degree,
Okay.
I was one of those guys that was going to go in there, work hard, get everything he could out of it. And I mean, if a degree happened somehow, fine, but that was not the ultimate. Like I was still trying out for bands and auditioning for bands.
Right.
And the Dallas-Fort Worth scene had a lot of possibilities, a lot of work. And so I was working pretty much right away with bands doing fusion and stuff like that. When a band called Brave Combo needed a drummer, and this was in the beginning of 83. Yeah, it was the beginning of 83. They needed a drummer. And so I auditioned, got the gig, and we were going to be going to New York and start. I mean, the band was already touring and stuff and on the road enough to where I knew my education at that point would have to be put on hold. So I joined them. And what their deal was and is world music. A lot of all kinds of styles.
Cool.
All kinds of crazy styles, right? A lot of times they would be pinned as a nuclear polka band, and what that basically meant was it was just polkas played really fast to punk audiences. That's what we played. We played clubs that were like for punk audiences, and we opened up for Red Hot Chili Peppers in '85, and
very cool.
So I saw a lot of cool bands back in the day when there was. I'll get back to my little soapbox of places to play and how to progress as a musician. But back then in the early 80s, you could be in a band and you could be in a van and you could tour and you could make a living.
And that was like a van type of tour.
Yeah, that was all van stuff. Yeah. And that's when, again, it was like kind of, you learn a lot. You make your own records. You promote your own records. You do college radio. You learn. It's kind of like the minor leagues for rock and roll. And everybody went through it, from REM to Dwight Yoakam to the Blast. I mean, there's just, everybody went and had their EP or a couple albums on a minor label, worked the college circuit, worked the college radio, get a record deal, and then you're on to the majors and you're able to, either sustain that or you don't.
Right.
So that's what we did. I did that for about 10 years. So I learned a lot about all kinds of musical styles, and we were doing a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with drum set. So I would have to kind of like create a drum set version for percussionists, and this was before I had to have a guy make a woodblock holder for me because LP hadn't made it yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No
so
kidding.
for my left foot, I could, do a clave with my left foot.
Oh, cool.
And I had a welder friend. I said, this is what I need. Nobody was making it yet, And at that time, world music was starting to get kind of popular, especially in Europe and stuff like that. We'd go over to Europe, and it was already a bit of a deal. But it wasn't, but we were, like, at that time, the only 4-piece rock band doing it. So as a drummer, I'm like, there's 6 percussion parts. I got to figure out what ones are the most important and then figure out how I can make that sound or whatever with what I've got,
And what did you, to get that, like, were there any specific, like, Afro-Cuban books or anything that you worked out of to get the chops up for that, or what did you do?
Yeah, all the above, because at North Texas, you're already learning that stuff. At North Texas anyway, and I had percussionist friends and I bought congos, so I just learned all the parts that were appropriate anyway.
Right.
And then just said, okay, some things in Latin stuff, it becomes fairly simple when you're breaking it down, especially if, just a clave. I would do a clave with my left foot, or I would do the güiro with my left foot on the hi-hat. The kick drum just followed the bass guitar pattern, whether it was, syncopated or straight 4 on the floor. And then my left hand would somehow assimilate congas through rim, side stick, and toms.
Oh, cool.
Just,
so you just moved around.
Yeah, and my right hand would do the cascara, or I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The cowbell part. It's been many, many years since I've done that. Many, many, many years. I became pretty decent at it, but it's been a long time. So I don't profess to be able to sit down. Although I will take that back. We did a reunion about 3 years ago, 2 Christmases ago, I guess, and I got it back a little bit.
Right.
I got it back a little bit.
It's definitely stuff that if you're not working on, it's it kind of goes away.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm obviously in a very, very fortunate position to be, employed by Dwight Yoakam for the last 14 years, and so that's what I'm really good at now. That's
great, and that's a good thing to be good at. We're going to get to that in just, and I'm not brushing that off. Please don't. But we'll get to that in a minute. What about now? After that, now real quick before we move on from Brave Combo, how many records did you do with that band?
I don't know, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, it like I said, when I was looking at the discography, you did.
It's a pretty decent amount.
Yeah.
10 years, we pretty decent amount, probably 5 or 6 or something like that.
Were those all done in like a real pro studio, or were they done?
No,
in a garage?
not in a garage, and it wasn't in Capitol Records. It wasn't. They were never done. They were done in mid-level studios.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, guys, but
oh no,
whoever we recorded at, I'm not trying to, but it's just the truth. And back then, it was completely different back then. You didn't sound like you were on a major label until you were on a major label with major money going into major studios. There was a difference.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because of technology and stuff, this is a good thing. I'm not saying anything bad, but nowadays a person can legitimately make what sounds like a major label record without having to be in a major studio.
Oh,
it's totally possible.
You can record a record in your bedroom. It's
to a degree.
I
mean, like the people that can and make it sound like a major label record. Then they've got really mad skills.
Yeah.
The difference was that the second the vinyl. The needle hit the vinyl, you could tell whether it was a major label record or an independent record.
Yeah.
Starting with CDs, it became less and less. The degrees of difference became less and less.
Right.
Really, really get as close as possible.
Right.
So with that being said, you didn't have major label money. You weren't in a major recording studio, so you were in things that would maybe not have the best room to listen or the best room to track. There would always be something that made it a $50 an hour studio as opposed to $150 an hour studio.
Right. Okay, so from there, you went on to a band called Tripping Daisy.
Yeah, I worked with them for a couple of years. Didn't really record with them. Did a few things, not much. They were kind of going in and out of drummers and stuff like that. Kind of the typical drummer scenario where drummers come in and out of bands depending on how everybody's getting along.
Yeah. Okay. And then from there, now if I've listened to the story and everything like that, but tell your version of how did Smash Mouth come? Because that was kind of the way it went, right? You went from the Brave Combo to Tripping Daisy, then you got in Smash Mouth. Is that how it worked?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, like those would be those are my gigs that make the most money at the time while I'm, as every other drummer does, play with a bunch of other people.
Right.
So I did records with a guitar player with named Andy Timmons, who I'm very proud of working with because he is literally one of the best guitar players there is. He's freaking awesome. And we did a record that I'm really super proud of. We did the Sgt. Pepper's record as a 3-piece instrumental, the whole record, and from beginning to end. So, and we performed it in New York and performed it in Tokyo from beginning to end as a 3-piece, and he nails everything. I mean, he nails. It's beautiful. He is so freaking good. So, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I played with Andy Timmons too, because I'm very proud of that. I feel like, I'm fortunate to have played with one of the best guitar players that's around.
That's fantastic. That's really cool.
And I'm also proud of that record because I love Ringo. Ringo's one of my favorite drummers.
Ringo's awesome.
And so being able to play all those songs, and record it, I mean, that was just awesome. It was so much fun.
Where did you record that at?
That was at a good studio in Dallas. A guy named Robert Wexler was the engineer on that, and he got great drum sounds and
did you kind of go old
happy.
School on the drum sounds like Ringo stuff? Did you do
it
the
was
T-towel trick? And
we probably did that on some of the cuts, but I'm not sure how much he did on that record like that. I mean, when we did it, we got into it with it was Andy's Ludwig drum set.
Cool.
He had a Mod Orange drum set, lucky guy. And so, yeah, we went for that. It definitely not brand new DWs in there or anything like that. It was, no offense to DWs, they're really great, but for this record,
right,
it was Ludwig's. Yeah, that's kind of
the order.
The order of, thank you.
If I try to say it, I'll screw up now
right?
too.
No kidding. Sorry. Anyway, that was kind of my path for the major bands. There was a time where I spent playing bass for a couple of years. Actually, that's kind of a little bit what happened. After Brave Combo, there was some time with Terrence Simeon and the Mallet Playboys, which is a Zydeco band. And I did one of his records. I'm really proud of that record too, because I was,
And you were playing drums on that or bass? Oh, okay.
Drums.
Okay.
So that's what happened after Brave Combo. I started working with them, and so I got to do awesome festivals in Louisiana, all over the country, playing Zydeco music. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
It is so funky. And it was like, wow, cool. I kind of it was interesting for me because I went from a Brainiac study band, like we just listened to everything and study and transcribe and all that nonsense, and to a band where I talked to the guitar player. I'm like, okay, so when it's your solo, I'm going to bring it down and I can do this. I can drop out the kick drum. I can drop. He's just looking at me with a blank look on his face. He's like, just play, dude.
Just play the drums.
Just play. I'm like, cool. All right. That's it. So I went from guys that, knew everything about musicology and everything about music to guys that was all feel, all
right.
Emotion, just like they weren't studied. It was just, they picked up their instrument and played it. That's
right.
all it was.
Yeah.
And so from there, so I spent some time with them, and then I got kind of bored with drums, and I kind of felt just like I wasn't learning anymore. I guess it kind of got to be where, like, how fast can my double kick drum stuff be? How fast can my paradiddles be? I just got over it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't exciting anymore. And so I started picking up the bass, and lo and behold, there was a country singer who needed a bass player, and I love country music, and I particularly love playing bass in country music. It's an absolute blast. So I did 2 years of that. I did a record with him, and
Did you feel that being a bass player made you a better drummer?
oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. It's the best thing that ever, one of the best things that ever happened as far as a drummer was learning how to play bass. And
How so? Talk to some of the younger drummers out there. How would playing bass help you as a drummer?
well, it helped me understand the harmonic side of music and really get names to the sounds that I was used to hearing. You know, there are these chord changes that happen, and I would recognize them, but I just couldn't really put a 1-4-5-6-2 to them, or that type of that's how I think, and that's how I hear, as opposed to like CG and all that stuff.
Right.
It's more like how it relates in the scale. So it really helped that. It helped me with charts and writing out charts. It helped on the specific drumming side of things. As a bass player, when I was playing, I played with a really good drummer who didn't play too much stuff. So I didn't have very many occasions with the drummer Pete Coatney of ever having to turn around and go, why did you do that? But I did play with some guys where I would be playing, and then the drummer would do some stupid fill that was just like, dude, I know you practiced that for the last 2 weeks, and you've just been dying to throw it in, but not here, not now. Don't do that. And more than anything, that's what really helped. I just realized how important a song is. I mean, I knew it as a drummer, but man, when you're playing bass, it's vital. You have to know the song.
Mm-hmm.
You're the bass player. Your note is the only note that matters. Everybody else can do whatever they want and fly around it, but your note is the one that matters.
Right.
And it's important. You got to know the song. And that really helped my drumming. Just to say, man, it's all about the song. I need to know the song, and I need to not practice crazy drum fills for a gig that doesn't need or want crazy drum fills.
I am so glad you said that, because you know what? I have so many students that come to me and they talk about wanting to do drum fills or drum licks or what have you. And whenever I talk about it, I say this, and I say it about myself too. You know, I mean, the person in the band, in my opinion, that usually is the one that is most guilty of overplaying is usually the drummer. You know, I mean, most drummers, they want to sit down and throw their licks in, brrr, you know, look at me, you know. Been there, done that. But I think just holding the band together, I mean, back to the Ringo thing, and just he knew, he always played for the song. And the thing that I like about what Ringo always talks about, how is the main thing that he listened to was the vocal, and he didn't want to step on the vocal. And I'm really glad you said that, because again, I say that all the time, and again, I say it from a place of experience of, hey man, I've been there, done that. Don't overplay. There's no reason, you know, you don't have to, like you say, you know, I've been working on this one drum fill for 3 weeks, and I think I have it, and you want to stretch out, and you know, one's back there and you're over here. You shoot past it. So
well, there's plenty of music out there that if that's what you're into and that's what you like, I mean, that was kind of nice about playing a little bit of music with Andy Timmons. It was Guitar Hero music, and there was times where it was just like all about the chops, you know.
Yeah.
But even Andy, which is why he liked me as a drummer, wanted it to still be about the song. Most importantly, you know, we would do covers of stuff where it'd be chops crazy or whatever, but his songs that he wrote for, you know, were about songs, and it wasn't about chops and stuff like that. But that being said, I heard a tune the other day, just Spotify. It was like, who's this? And it was a Blink-182 Wildfire. I don't know if you're familiar with that song. I mean, I hadn't heard it, but man, I was like, God dang, those drums sound good, man. It was like, holy mackerel. And you know, Travis is cool, and you know, he does the snare drum stuff, all the core stuff. You know, he's badass. So I just was really listening to it. I'm like, well, yeah, if you know, there you go. That's when those chops are important. It's like it makes musical sense. Like if he didn't play those cool double kick drum fills and stuff like that, the stuff he was doing, it's like wouldn't make sense.
Right.
You have to kill it.
Yeah.
You have to be that guy.
Right.
So if you know, find that music. It's kind of like if you know, you can have a street car that's fast as all get out, but take it to a track.
Yeah.
Don't Don't be on the street. You're going to be mowing people down.
Right. Exactly. Well, cool. And okay, so now let's go back to this Smash Mouth again. How did Smash Mouth come to be?
Tripping Daisy. That's after the bass thing. So back to Tripping Daisy. I'm out of them. And
sorry, I didn't mean to just jump.
No,
on you like
that's
that.
fine. Just keep me focused, I guess. So I was looking for a gig somewhere around the 98 years of 98 or something. Like that's when I left Tripping Daisy. And so I'm looking for a gig and doing different things. But the kind of the long story goes like this. I'm in traffic in Dallas on my way back to Denton, which is about an hour drive. So I'm like, I don't want to be in traffic. I'm right by Brooke May's music store. They had a pro drum shop, and all my buddies worked there. So I'm like, go in there. And just hanging out, and somebody says, did you hear that Smash Mouth is looking for a drummer? I'm like, what? And they had already had the Walking on the Sun song out, and I loved that song. I was like, oh my God, this would be so cool. So I go home, I find out who their management is. I, put a package together and send it off to management because that's just the right thing to do. But if you want a gig, you're never going to get it by doing that.
Right.
You do that because for political reasons, it's the right thing to do. But if you want the gig, I already knew this, you had to find somebody that's in the band. Mm-hmm. You have to. And I was like, well, somehow, some way, I know somebody in the band. Somehow, some way. I was convinced of it. Right. And I really wanted this gig. It would have been the All-Star song hadn't quite come out yet, I don't think. But, the record was fixing to come out. They had a big tour with Lenny Kravitz. It was going to be a big deal. Right. And I hadn't had that yet. And I was like, I want that gig. That's what I want to do. So I just started going through what at the time was called a Rolodex, and just started contacting everybody I knew. I started on the West Coast because they're from the West Coast. So I started on the West Coast and just started And eventually within, a few minutes, but at that time, I'm already learning the songs. Right. And the first thing I did, I got the lyrics. I got the records, or whatever. I bought the records, and I started, since I knew I kind of had a little bit of time because I could tell when their tour would start, and I just had a little bit of information to know what I needed to do to prepare to get ready. Right. Was it tomorrow? Do I need to be ready tomorrow, or do I have some time? So I had some time, so I transcribed. I wrote out the charts on bass. So I wrote out the chart. So I learned the bass, wrote out the charts for bass. While all the reaching out to people is going on. And that allowed me to know the songs so well that the drumming part charting out was nothing. That was easy. It happened like that. And I could condense it quickly because I just knew the song because I'd learned the bass parts. And I learned the charts, and as a bass player, now you know why the drums are playing what they're playing. Right. It just all makes sense, and it's just supernatural. And so while I'm doing that, somebody reaches out to me, the drummer for Reverend Horton Heat at the time. Sorry, I'm spacing on it. Scott Chirilla. Okay. Contacted me and said, hey, I know the drum tech. He's a friend of mine from Chicago. I'm like, awesome, perfect. So I reach out to him, and he's like, yeah, they're looking for a drummer. Do you have a drum tech? And I'm like, no, I do not. And you are the guy for me. And he's like, oh, good. Let me tell you where to send your stuff. Send it to Greg, the singer, the songwriter, to the address. They were out on the road doing promotional stuff. The singer and the guitar player are out doing promotional things. So I sent it off to the songwriter, Greg, who's still a really good friend of mine. And he knew of Tripping Daisy, and he was like, yeah, you can have an audition. So now I'm ready for to be flown out, do an audition, and I write out all my charts. I condense everything down. I brought a snare drum with me, but I condense everything down to where every one of their songs is on my snare drum head.
All the songs,
everything, every single song is on the snare drum head. And what that means is I've condensed it down to like a few inches on a snare drum head,
right?
To where I can look down, and once you know songs, the most important thing for me, so I don't have a brain freeze, is just how does it start,
right?
Because once I'm in, I'm all right,
yeah.
But just like if any nerves hit. If anything just kind of freaks me out and I have a bit of a brain freeze, I need to look down and go, that's how it starts, go.
Right.
And so I did, and I guess there were, I don't know how many other guys auditioned. I was told later by a guy named Barry Squire who held those auditions. I was the non-Barry Squire guy. And if you're an LA drummer, you know who Barry Squire is. Awesome guy. Love that guy. We've used him with Dwight, so he's a killer guy. But I knew every single song, and I knew some of them better than they did. So, and I knew that they would only have a little bit of time off before the tour started. I could see their schedule, and my whole mindset was, and I told them, I said, look, if you want to rehearse, I'll rehearse, but you only have so many days off. And if you want to spend the time with your family, I know these songs, and we just went through them, and they're just, you want to do them just like the record. Well, I know them. I transcribed them. I mean, I know them. We could do the gig right now if we had to. No problem. So anyway, that's why I got the gig, and that's because of the North Texas training.
Right.
You just have to know everything,
Just prepare.
You just have to know everything.
Yeah.
And that's what North Texas taught me, and they taught me how to do it, and they taught me how to, condense it all into something that I'm able to deal with.
Man, that's fantastic. How long did that gig last?
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Not that long. A good long, in 99 and 2000.
And so, and where all did you tour with them?
Oh, just the States. We didn't go anywhere there. Outside of the States at that time. I eventually spent time with them again in 2007 and 2008, a little bit of 2009, when Dwight he didn't shut things down, but he just said he wasn't going to be able to keep me working.
Right.
So he said, if you need to go do something, go do it, but I'll call.
Yeah.
And so I did the Smash Mouth thing and got some calls from Dwight and was able to do some and not able to do others. And then in 2009, Dwight called and said, hey, we're going to fire it all back up again.
Okay, cool. And on the Smash Mouth thing, did you do any recording with them?
No, we did some recording, but I don't think I'm sure it never got released. I feel pretty confident it never got released. So I was a touring drummer pretty much for him. And really, by the time that 2007, 8, 9, all that stuff was going, the recording side of their career wasn't necessarily. It was, but then with them, we did a lot of. It wasn't USO, but we did some other company, some other
MWR.
Probably that.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that.
Yeah, and so I went to Japan with them, and
okay.
Played on played on their ships, and I mean it was just some crazy nuclear aircraft carrier we played on. Maybe it was a George Washington, I don't know, Roosevelt or some president's name on that thing. It was awesome. That was cool.
Yeah, that stuff.
That and cool and playing for them has always been great. It's an honor, obviously, to do that. But man, those kids and their kids that you're playing for. I mean, the service is unbelievable, man. There's just kids. Yeah,
it is. You and I talked about that a little bit, and this interview is about you, but I've done some of those too with Sam Morrison Band, and I remember we were playing in we were flying from Macedonia into Kosovo. We were playing over in Kosovo, and we were flying on a Chinook helicopter, with the two propellers, and they put the gear on a pallet and they put it in the back of the helicopter with a forklift, and then they had jump seats in the back, and they said, hey, if somebody wants to ride between the pilots, you can do it. And I I'm in. Let's
Oh,
do
yeah.
it. So I jumped in between the pilots on this little jump seat, and they get in, and they look like they're 12. You know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and man, I have so much respect for that, and I got you and I'll talk. You know, it's just I love that stuff.
Yeah,
So that's
same
really
kind
cool.
of thing. You know, we on that aircraft carrier went up to where the captain is in this gigantic room that you see everything, and there's all these crazy screens, and it was just like, I mean, it's insane. And they're all kids running everything except for the captain, and he's not that old.
Yeah,
You know, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Anyway,
I've got a whole respect for that stuff.
yeah,
it's very
wonderful.
cool. You guys got
It's
to
wonderful.
do that.
So I did that. So that's
Okay.
the Smash Mouth time. So that's around through 2000. So 2001 was just kind of hanging out in Denton, realizing I needed to make a move. 2002, I moved to Los Angeles and started playing just locally. I mean, it was one of those things where my whole mindset was I say no to nothing.
Right.
Everything is like, yes, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And just started playing with a bunch of people in the bars, you know, doing what I do, which it's kind of a roots rock country organic drummer guy. And that scene had some artists that were doing some things, and they needed someone like myself to be in there and support and play. And so I played mostly drums, played a little bit of bass. And, you know, within a year, Dwight had seen me, you know, handful of times. I played with him a couple times, you know, when he sat in or whatever. And
Where was this at? Where did you see
Hollywood.
him? And where did he sit in with you?
That was at the King.
Okay. Was it like a jam night thing, or what was it?
Well, it was not. No, it wasn't a jam night. There was a monthly thing we did. That Vince Vaughn's sister, Victoria Vaughn, and her friend, who's an actress, I can't think of her name. Anyway, they had these nights, Wednesday or Sunday night. I think it was Sunday night at the King, and they, you know, once a month, and they invited all their friends because they wanted a dance hall type. They're from the South and wanted to be able to dance.
Cool.
And so they figured out who the band would be. I was the drummer, and a friend of mine, Keith Gaddis, was the guitar player, and we would have different artists, that, you know, kind of major artists, come in and sing a song or two.
Cool.
And that one of the times it was Dwight, and I think we did Lucinda Williams. I mean, there was a few different, but that was the draw. You had this killer band that could play the standards and get people to dance, and then you'd have the major singer-songwriter artists coming in to sing.
Cool.
So then by 2003, the beginning of 2003, he was kind of ready to start a new band.
You were, or Dwight was putting a new band together?
Dwight was putting a new band together.
And his old band had just kind of dispersed, or just time to move on?
Yeah, it's just time to move on.
Time to move on.
Yeah.
And he knew you from playing with you. Did he
Yes.
specifically call you, or how did you get the call for the...
Keith Gaddis was the guitar player. So the full story on this was that I was playing with Keith Gaddis, and Keith Gaddis started hanging out with Dwight. And Keith was telling me that it sounds like Dwight might be changing things. And the first thing he was going to do was just go out and play some shows with Keith. So the two of them went out and played for a while. His final record with Pete Anderson was Population Me, and Pete was getting ready to maybe pull a band together to possibly tour on this record. And so I got a call from Pete Anderson because he got my name from a friend of mine named Dusty, and Dusty Wakeman. And so I'm talking to Keith, and I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on, but he goes, well, go play with Pete. So who knows what's going to happen, you know?
Right.
Go play with Pete. So I did the audition and made that band. And then probably a month later, Dwight just made the call that he didn't really want that band, but was wanting to know if I was still wanting to play with him. And it would be with Keith. And then we would find a bass player. And we ended up finding a guy named Dave Rowe, who prior was 10 years with Johnny Cash.
Oh, okay, cool.
Stand-up bass
Stand-up
player.
bass,
Oh,
yeah.
God, it was awesome.
I bet.
God, it was so good. Dave is wonderful. Dave is just unbelievable, and it was just stand-up bass, myself, and a guitar player.
Really?
It was just so good.
That's awesome.
It was just this 4-piece rock. It was awesome.
Just drive the band.
Oh my God, it was so good.
That's awesome.
And I do love playing with a stand-up bass player, and especially when they're at the caliber of Dave Rowe.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like really, really amazing. It's so much fun. It's just so much fun.
That's great. And so then that's when you were officially Dwight's drummer.
Yeah,
And what year was it?
2003.
2003.
Uh-huh.
And so then the first record you did with him was Blame It on the Vein?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blame the Vein.
Blame the Vein.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And that was your first record.
Yes.
And so I want to kind of talk about that a little bit too, because you and I, when you were over here the other day, we were talking about Pro Tools and on our soapboxes a bit about working with the click and all that sort of stuff. What's the writing process like with Dwight? Does everything come in and like, here's what we're doing, or does he allow you? Do you guys rehearse the songs up? How does the whole writing process, recording process?
Well, certainly the
come to
writing
be?
process is he writes pretty much at his house. He might go write with somebody somewhere else, but he's pretty much just has ideas and jots them down like any good singer-songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
And that record, it's always been a little bit different, but that record we did rehearse.
Blame the Vein.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did rehearse that beforehand, and then we went in and recorded it. Since then, more often than not, we just go in and cut it. That's what's been happening lately. Not so much of the rehearsal stuff. I think he is more interested in capturing the excitement of a freshness for a song.
Right.
And that has been the process for the last few records.
So you just go in and he's like,
I don't even know what he's doing. I don't know what snare drum to put up. I know what drum set to put up because
Really?
he has a Gretsch drum set that he likes to have in the studio.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like, okay, cool. But I throw up a snare drum that, makes sense.
Yeah.
If it just has to be, the good old Ludwig Superphonic or something,
Yeah.
just good standard snare drum. But yeah, so I just wait. We all wait, and when he shows up, he starts playing it. The key, find out all the essential stuff, and then we just kind of go for it. And that go for it means he depends on my instinct to go in a certain direction because he doesn't want to sit and tell me what to do.
Right.
But if my instinct is not what his instinct is, then he'll go, well, this is what I was thinking, or could you try this or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes that, that'll happen where I'm thinking it's this and he's like, no, let's do this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll go down that road.
So but that's cool. So you're not like totally micromanaged on everything that you do.
Mm-mm.
That's fantastic. And then on the recording process, this is what we were talking about the other day, because you also, well, let me ask this question first. Now you also are a producer. You do
Yes.
producing.
Yes, I do.
And so have you ever done any producing on Dwight's records at all?
I have not.
You have not.
No.
Okay. What is some of the stuff that we'll come back to Dwight in a minute. What is some of the stuff you've done that you've produced?
I did a couple artists in Texas, Brian Hauser, Elizabeth Wills, and then here in Los Angeles, Honky Tonk Train, Paul Chesney, and a couple records for Jimmer Podrosky. It just goes by Jimmer. Brian Whelan and I produced one of his records together. And I worked with Dan Byrne and produced some stuff with Dan. I don't know if they've ever got released, but
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then from a production standpoint, were you also the drummer on that, or did they had their own guy, or did you play drums on them as well?
I'm drummer on all of it.
Okay. And then how do you, when you go about recording a drummer, this is what we were talking about the other day, like line somebody up to the grid, play to the click. How do you do that? How do you feel about
Well, I haven't. Yeah, I guess I really haven't done any work with a different drummer.
Oh, okay.
So, with that being said, kind of what I feel my strength is playing organically with a band in a room and recording that. And I'm pretty decent with the click, so everything's usually pretty solid. And if it's not, I know how to edit things and move things around. But it's never, I use the grid as maybe a point of reference to see and look but at that point, if I'm moving things around that have to do with the drums, I'm listening to everything, because maybe I don't move the drums. Maybe I just move this other thing, or maybe it all depends, but I don't have the skills to even line it up and make everything grid perfect and then go backwards from there to make it sound human.
Yeah.
I just pretty much know how to make it sound human, and then try to alleviate anything that I hear that takes me out of the song. And a lot of things can take me out of the song. It could be out of tune guitar, out of tune vocal, a snare drum and a kick drum that are supposed to be in alignment that aren't. And those are, it could be where the kick drum and the bass drum are not in alignment. That could throw me out of the song, as well as arrangement or whatever.
Right.
But I'm listening really hard all the time when I'm producing. What I like to do is be on the road and edit on the road, because I just have a lot of time, and I love just sitting, listening with my headphones and going, is it perfect? Is it perfect? And when I say perfect, is anything happen that throws me out of the song? Because there'll be happy accidents that I'm like, it just keeps me in the song. It keeps me going towards the song.
Right.
And I don't want to fix.
Right.
it,
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. And now, then let's go back to the Dwight thing. And again, this, the stuff we were talking about the other day, playing to the click live. You don't do anything to the click live, or you do stuff to the click live?
Yeah, we have about a dozen songs out of a 35 song set list that he likes, knowing that the click is a part of the song.
Okay.
The click it's only going to me, so I use it as a gauge to get us in, to have us starting there. And if we're naturally, I have it fairly low. I don't have it really high, so I'm not just trying to bury the click,
Yeah.
I move. If we move, we move, but I have a reference to kind of get us back to. But sometimes we're just right on that click, and I'm just playing. It's just like, we're just, here we go. But
Yeah.
I'm the only one listening to the click.
Yeah.
And if I feel like we are maybe struggling away from the click, I'll turn it off. I won't force us. I won't be like, slow it down, guys. This is where the tempo is. You're messing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll just we'll go with it. And if I can smoothly bring us back, I will. But it's all based on what I can tell Dwight is feeling or wants. Because sometimes we'll be at the click and he'll just want it faster no matter what.
Right.
Okay, cool. I turn off the click and we just go
Turn
faster.
it off and push it a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And is that it? Does he want you on the click on certain songs just because he wants to make sure a vocal thing's landing right, or
I don't know specifically, but a lot of it's based on just sort of referencing the recorded version, and then I'll just say it's where we are live, but your recorded version's over. So if the earlier songs, it kind of is usually recorded faster than we've been playing them live.
Oh,
The
early,
early stuff is just, it's burning.
Yeah.
And he uses that as a reference, and 30 some odd years later, it's it's where we're at kind of now. And he'll, not fast as you, Little Sister, because that's the thing is, sometimes it's just there's a new groove that, just let's do it like this. And so, Little Sister was kind of slower and swampier, and then we were doing it for so long. It's and then one time we were doing it and we would jump into, we go from straight to a triplet, a swung feel of it, so from a straight to a shuffle in the song quite a few times, and then that stopped. So he was like, got a new bass player, we got a fiddle player, it's sounding like the record. What's the tempo of the record? So we tried the tempo of the record, seemed pretty quick, and we bumped it back down a few BPMs, and that's where we're at on that one. That's that example.
That's cool. That's great. And so, fantastic. And I like talking about that stuff just as a point of reference to so people can, younger drummers who might hear this, or drummers out there that are playing, why you wouldn't want to play to a click, because that's always, I think, sometimes a debate and a subject that a lot of guys,
honestly, my situation, I think, is different than probably what most drummers nowadays, especially in Los Angeles, but maybe in other areas, maybe Nashville, because that's all I can really relate things to. It's just kind of at where, this level, so to speak. With that being said, almost every guy I know that's younger than me is playing with tracks.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So people marvel that we don't play to tracks. I mean, we are so what is now considered old school, where we don't have tracks and we just happen to have a click. So I think any young person is, you better know how to learn. You better know how to play with tracks, which means you better be playing to a click, period. Sorry. End of discussion.
Yeah.
Not that like I said, not that there are a ton of gigs out there right now, but the ones that are out there, you're going to be playing with tracks.
Yeah, yeah. I did a gig a while back at a church thing, and we're playing to tracks, and they're syncing up with the screen and everything like that. And I knew I was going to get a count in on the track, and I knew it. And they told me you'll get a count in and a count out. Okay, great. So it counts in, and it's a 2-bar count in. So you count in, you start playing. Well, then 8-bar verse, you're coming up on the 7th bar, 8th bar. Chorus 2, 3, 4. Where did that come from? It's kind of disheartening at first. You're not expecting it. So
right.
Anyway, I just thought, I thought I would ask that question because I know a lot of people. Yeah, exactly. A lot of younger players. You watch a lot of stages now, and the drummer's sitting there with his Mac or his, whatever, and he's running the show from his computer. And you got to be able to line it up.
Pretty much everybody I know that's younger than myself and has what's now considered a normal gig, they know all that stuff.
Yeah. So, okay. So that being said, before I ask my last question here, give some young players out there, the best piece of advice that you can give them, on playing live, how to go about getting a gig, how to, what's the best piece of advice you give to some of the young players out there that might ask you questions like, how do I get a gig or something like that?
Don't be a dick.
There you go. It's that simple, right?
It starts, and most drummers aren't, so, we're a different breed. So, obviously don't be a dick. But you just have to be prepared, and everybody's, has a different ability of being prepared, like if I couldn't go do the Frank Zappa gig,
Yeah.
If they called and said, can you do it? I would have to say, well, let me think about that. If I took a year to practice, to be prepared for the gig, okay, maybe, know, but if somebody else, like country singer-songwriter guy calls, I'm like, yeah, give me the songs I need to know and I'll be prepared.
Yeah.
So just be prepared and be honest with yourself, and if, again, like I said, honest with myself, is I'd have to prepare for a year to be, playing the Black Page and all that other stuff with Zappa,
right.
Just like, hello. So yeah, don't be a dick, be prepared. And if you're not prepared, figure out why and get practice towards it, or just decide I'm not playing with Frank Zappa.
Right. Yeah.
Which is pretty much what I've already done. I've decided I'm not playing with Frank Zappa.
Very cool. Okay. Now I said I was going to ask, that was going to be my last question. I lied. I realized that I have 2 more.
That's fine. That's all good.
So the next one is, you guys fly a lot and hub out of someplace on tour, right? So you'll fly.
Yeah, we do that often.
Okay. When you're doing that, and this kind of goes back to talking to younger drummers, are you playing your kit every night, or are you playing a backline kit?
No, Dwight has his stage set figured out. We have an A rig, we have a B rig, and it's always there. It's always there. My tech is always there. I live in a pretty beautiful gig world, and I think it's a world that's used to be. A lot of people had this, so I know how fortunate I am, and I'm very grateful to work with Dwight and to work at this level. And when I say that, it's more than like I just don't have to carry my stuff. You know, I don't. It sounds terrible, but I really don't even have to think, other than like getting on that stage and making sure Dwight is as happy as he could possibly be,
Right.
and that we sound the best that we could possibly sound.
Right.
So somebody, I get an email and says, be ready at your place at such and such time, because you're going to get picked up and they're going to take you to the airport, and they're going to, everything's taken care of, everything. So it's one of those things where all I have to do is focus on being the best drummer I can be for the best Dwight Yoakam.
That's fantastic. Is he picky about like what kind of drums you use, drum sounds, drum tones, stuff like that?
No,
because you said the Gretsch kit in the studio.
Yeah, the Gretsch kit, that's his drum set, that he likes in the studio. And I've been with Mapex since '97, and he's cool with that. I mean, they're great. They hook us up, and he just generally, he's thinking like a more of a theatrical aspect, because it's a visual. Like he just let's find a cool color drum set. And we just do different stuff.
Very cool.
And sometimes Mapex has the color. He's like, I like that color. It might not be their top of the line, whatever, but the drum set on the B rig is their My Identity drum set. It's fine. It's just, it's not. I play Saturn as part of the A rig, and that's my I have a personal kit that's a Saturn kit, and I love those drums. Those are awesome. Those are just, God, they're so good.
What sizes do you use?
With him, I use 22 by 14, 13, 14. No, you know what? We're now over to a 20. So it's 20 by 14, 12 by 8, 14 by 14, 16 by 16.
Oh, okay.
So, and we always kind of go with traditional size, because we all everybody in the band is just likes a 14-inch kick drum, depth-wise, and just normal looking, what I consider normal looking drums. Everybody else is probably used to 18-inch kick drums and stuff. And,
yeah.
I mean, I get it. It's cool. Whatever.
There's something about a 14-inch deep kick drum, though, that the distance between the batter head and the front head, it just it's got.
It makes a big difference.
Oh, it makes a huge difference.
I've got a 24 by 14 Ludwig kick drum that's just. It's an olive badge. It's just a one-off that I found somewhere on eBay or whatever. But God dang, that thing sounds so unbelievable. And then Chris Hewer, a friend of mine in LA, made a 26 by 14 for me out of mahogany. That's we're building a complete drum set for. But I did a couple records with old Radio King, probably from the 40s. I just fell in love with that drum set. 13, 16, 26 by 14. God dang, that thing sounded great. And then I started researching what it would cost to buy one of those drum sets and get them to working order and everything. I was like, oh, it's going to be expensive and a bit of a nightmare. And he made a kick drum like that for somebody. And he goes, well, listen to this. Boom, boom. I'm like, oh, shit, that's awesome. He goes, well, we can just do that. And I know... Bonnie over at Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about Anderson Shells? Or
Anderson Shells, yeah. Anderson woodworking over there, yeah.
Where they get all the Keller shells and stuff. So I went over there and picked out the shells for this drum set I'm having made, and so I'd never done that before. So I was like, oh, let's just do it that way.
You know Jimmy Ford?
Does he work over there?
No, Ford Drums.
Ford Drums.
Yeah.
I've met him.
Yeah, he's such an amazing player. And Ford Custom Drums, his drums are phenomenal.
Sure.
But he has he has an old Radio King kit that are the dimensions you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And he told me just the other day, where he got it and how he acquired it, and I kind of forget the story, and I wouldn't do it justice anyway, but he basically rebuilt this kit, and I haven't heard it, but I bet it, I mean, you can just look at the pictures and go, that kit sounds awesome.
They're awesome. I mean, the one I was playing was awesome, and again, it's old head. I mean, the drum set had older heads on it. It's just one of those things where they just have such a cool sound and vibe, and when you compare them to new drums, you might even question, like when you're just sitting there hitting it, you might go, really, is this? But something about a room and a mic going through a board and some EQ that just like, holy mackerel. It's just awesome. It's just so cool. Such a good sound. And, you know, that's the one thing about being a drummer that's kind of fun and a curse is, you know, it's like, well, that's a sound I don't have.
I know the feeling.
I don't own that sound. I better own that sound. And so, I mean, when you get really nitpicky, which is cool, you realize like there are a lot of different sounds. Yeah. Especially with snare drums. And so next thing you know, you got to find a room to store all these freaking drums.
Dude, I was over at Lone Star the other day, and they had a 8-inch deep Black Beauty, and 14 by 8. Oh my God, I need another snare drum like I need a hole in the head, you know. But it just sounded fantastic.
I don't have the 8-inch Black Beauty. I got the 5 in it. I got the 5 and the 6.5, but I don't have that 8. Wow. Yeah.
I don't have a Black Beauty. I had one. Long story. I have 2 Superphonics. I've got a 5. I've got that one, and then I've got the 6.5 inch. Amazing drums. You know, supposedly the most recorded snare drum in history.
Yeah, so they say.
Yeah.
Slingerland might feel a little bit differently, but there's no way that Ludwig's got to absolutely be the one.
Well, dude, I mean, you know what? You put up a Superphonic. And if
that's why I said
you don't do anything. You just play it. You know, I mean, it just sounds great.
Yeah, that's why I said if I'm in the studio with Dwight, I just throw it up. Yeah, because I don't know what he's going to want, but even if there's no time to change it, that'll be good.
Right. Okay, so here's how we're going to end the podcast. I said a minute ago it's going to be my last question. I forgot about the drum set stuff. I don't know how I can forget about that. I was watching an interview, getting ready for this interview the other day on YouTube with you, and I'm sorry, I don't know who it was that was interviewing you, but you told a story about how you met Bruce Springsteen, and I got to hear the Bruce Springsteen story on my podcast. This is a great story.
Sure. Okay, so you mentioned that sometimes we hub out of areas, so we were hubbing out of Chicago. And we were staying at the Four Seasons, which is another awesome part about being with Dwight. And I went down to work out in the gym and had the complete day off. So I'm working out, and I see these 2 guys walk in, and and they're both fit guys. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm looking, one of those guys is Bruce Springsteen. Wow, that's pretty cool. So he's in the Four Seasons fitness room working out, and it's big enough to where there's separation, and he's over on the treadmill. And I'm like, I'm done with my workout, but I could probably do some more sets, more reps, and let's just keep doing this. So after probably 20 minutes or so, I realized he wasn't getting off of that machine anytime soon. I'm like, I guess I'm not meeting Bruce Springsteen. So I go to the shower, I do the sauna, I do the whole thing. I'm enjoying Four Seasons spa and everything. And I'm like, oh, cool, this is great. And I'm walking to the elevator, and I get to the elevator and waiting for it to come, and all of a sudden there's Bruce Springsteen and his fitness trainer walking to the elevator. So he's there at the elevator, and I introduce myself and tell him I'm a drummer with Dwight, and we're getting into the elevator and starting to go up, and there's some other people in there, and so we're talking. And he goes, "Well, where are you guys playing?" And I'm like, I don't really know where we're playing next. And the woman beside me goes, just a random woman who just was overhearing the conversation, goes, "Well, isn't that kind of important to know?" And Bruce goes, "No, we never know that stuff. We just know what time we have to be down in the lobby." And I'm like, all right, Bruce Springsteen's standing up for me.
The boss on your back.
Yeah, that was awesome. I was like, thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that.
That is fantastic. Well, Mitch, this has just been a real pleasure for me, and I'm sure that the people that are going to listen to this, they're going to dig it too. Thank you again for everything. Thank you for coming over here and doing this. Thanks for having Jill and Colin come over to take lessons.
Yeah, checks in the mail.
Not worried about it, man. So this is awesome. And guys, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Mitch Marine. And I will see you guys in the next episode of the Bart Factor. Have a great day.